plan to think about it again. That was the honest truth. Once the miles stacked up and the days fell back into their usual rhythm, it felt easier to let the memory settle where it wanted to. Not gone, just set aside. That's how most things end up on the road. You carry them until you don't have to anymore. The first few nights after that were uneventful. Quiet in the ordinary way. No repeating signs. No glow in the trees. I drove stretches I'd driven 100 times before and felt nothing out of place. That helped. But something subtle had shifted. I noticed it when I caught myself slowing down for no reason, not braking, just easing off, letting the truck decide its own pace for a moment longer than necessary. I noticed it when I checked the clock more often, even when there was no reason to. Time still moved forward. It always did. But I'd learned how thin it could feel. I passed other drivers in the night and wondered briefly if they'd felt it too. If they knew when to keep their speed steady. If they knew when not to rush. Of course, I never asked. That's not something you bring up in passing. One night, a few weeks later, I found myself back on a familiar stretch of highway. Not the same road, not even the same state, but it felt close enough that my hands tightened on the wheel before I could stop them. The trees pressed in a little tighter. The shoulder narrowed. I didn't slow down. I didn't speed up. I held steady. Nothing happened. No sign leaned the wrong way. No light waited off to the side. The road passed beneath me without comment. That was when I realized something else. It wasn't waiting for me, not anymore. That didn't mean it was gone. Just that whatever test there had been, I'd already taken it. I thought about Donna then, about how she'd said you leave when it lets you. I understood now that leaving didn't mean the road stopped paying attention. It just meant it was done asking questions. The days settled back into their usual shape. Miles, stops, paperwork. The road behaved the way roads are supposed to. Still, I found myself paying attention in ways I never had before. I noticed how some stretches felt hurried, like they wanted you through them quickly. Others felt patient, willing to let you sit with them for a while. I adjusted without thinking, slowing when it felt right, holding steady when it didn't. I didn't talk about it with anyone, not because I thought they wouldn't understand, because there wasn't anything to explain. Some things don't fit into conversation. They fit into habits. A few weeks later, I was running late. Not dangerously late. Just enough to feel that familiar pressure behind the eyes. The kind that makes you push a little harder than you should. It was well after midnight when I hit a long, empty stretch of highway. The sky was clear. The road dry. Perfect driving conditions. I picked up speed without meaning to. Just a few miles an hour. That's when I felt it again. Not the glow, not the signs, the pause. That thin place where the road feels like it's holding its breath. I eased off immediately, didn't argue with myself about it, didn't check the clock. I just listened. A mile ahead, I saw headlights pulled off onto the shoulder. Hazards flashing, a car this time. Not a truck. I slowed further as I passed. The driver was standing outside, phone to his ear, pacing. He looked frustrated, impatient. The car sat at an angle that suggested it had stopped suddenly. Too suddenly. I kept going. A few miles later, I saw the faint glow between the trees, not close, barely there. Like an old memory you can't quite place. It didn't move, didn't follow, it just existed. I held my speed steady, didn't slow, didn't rush. The glow faded back into the dark like it had never been there at all. I drove another 20 miles before pulling into a rest area. When I shut the truck down, my hands were steady. My breathing was calm. I thought about the car on the shoulder, about how close it might have been to stopping somewhere it shouldn't have. I thought about how easy it is to mistake urgency for importance. The road doesn't reward urgency. It responds to intention. I don't think about that stretch of road the way I used to. Not as a place. More like a lesson that didn't need words. The miles since then have stacked up the way they always do, one after another. Normal in every visible way. I still drive at night when the work calls for it. Still listen to the radio low. Still watch the lines slide past. Nothing dramatic changed. That's the part people usually expect. Some kind of ending you can point to. But the road doesn't work that way. What changed was smaller than that. I stopped treating every mile like something to get through as fast as possible. Stopped pushing when there was no reason to. I learned to notice when the road felt indifferent and when it felt patient. I learned that not every quiet stretch is empty. Sometimes it's just listening. I haven't seen Donna again. I don't expect to. If I did, I think I'd know I'd stayed somewhere longer than I should have. That feels right. Every now and then, usually when the night is calm and the traffic thins out, I catch myself checking the edge of the trees, not looking for light, just acknowledging the dark. The road doesn't answer. It doesn't need to. It already knows how I'll move. And that's enough.